Siamo qui con Ken Follett a Pietrasanta 2011, intanto benvenuto e poi la prima domanda, il suo libro preferito?
I answer this question differently every time, but I guess it's Live and Let Die by Ian Fleming.
E adesso il tuo libro preferito? No. Che ogni volta cambia, sì, che ogni volta cambia la domanda.
I just read a wonderful book by Elizabeth Strout, who's an American writer. The book's called Amy and Isabel, and she won the Pulitzer Prize about 5 years ago. And right now she's my favorite writer.
Il suo personaggio letterario preferito?
I guess I have to say James Bond. I read my first James Bond book when I was 12 years old. And, of course, I wanted to be exactly like James Bond. Tragicalmente, I have failed.
Il primo libro che ha letto e che si ricorda?
The first book I read was called Noddy Goes to Toy Town, written by a very successful English writer of children's books. She created a character called Noddy, who's a little wooden toy with a big blue hat with a bell on the top. And I learned to read when I was 4 years old, and Noddy Goes to Toy Town was probably the first book that I ever read.
Un passaggio che l'ha emozionato particolarmente in un libro che ha letto?
There's a wonderful character in Charles Dickens' novel, Martin Chuzzlewit. There's a character called Sari Gamp, who is a nurse, very, very bad nurse. And in 2 pages of dialogue by this woman, Dickens gives you a whole picture of this person. And it's brilliant. It's a tour de force. And if I'm trying to think of an example of really great writing, I think of Sari Gamp.
Come costruisce i suoi personaggi?
Well, I develop a character by asking myself questions about this person. Let's say it's a female character. Who was her first boyfriend? And what was he like? What was her mother like? What does she do when she's not in the story? In the story, she may be doing various things, but then when she stops, what does she do in the evening? What does she dream about? What does she hope for? All these questions. What was school like for this character? So I ask myself all these questions, and that helps me to create a round character, complete character, as opposed to a character who just walks through the story doing the right things.
Qualche anticipazione sul suo prossimo libro?
I'm writing the second book in the Century Trilogy, and it's called Winter of the World, and it's about the Spanish Civil War and the Second World War, and the development of the nuclear bomb. I've almost finished the first draft, and I'm quite pleased with it.
Domani si esibirà in questa piazza con il suo gruppo. Cosa ci può raccontare della musica che suona, di quello che vuole trasmettere alle persone, dato che sono 2 mondi veramente diversi, lo scrittore e il musicista?
Well, you know, my books don't have a message, and my music doesn't really have a message either. We play because we like it. We play really because every Monday night it's great fun to go to a soundproof studio with a bunch of people and play very, very loud music. That's what we like to do. And when we play in public like this, the main thing is we want to make people dance.
I suoi 5 libri preferiti? Perdonable.
Noddy Goes to Toy Town by Enid Blyton, the first book I read, and a book I still remember My heart still beats faster when I think of it. Live and Let Die by Ian Fleming, the first James Bond story that I read when I was 12 years old. And I mention that because when I became a writer, what I wanted to do was give my readers the same kind of excitement that I had felt when I read those early James Bond books. As a young man, I read Sometimes a Great Notion by Ken Kesey, a wonderful, rather experimental, rather literary novel that completely captivated me and gave me an idea of what could be done with literature. Although I don't write like that at all, but I was very taken with the possibilities it opened up. And of course, non-fiction books are very important to me as well. The book that I look at most is The History of the Second World War by Basil Liddell Hart. It's the classic, it's the standard work, and every time I have a spy in the Second World War, I've written many novels about spies in the Second World War, I always check what battles were going on, who was winning, who was losing at the time. And then finally, another history book, which really, in a way, is the book that gave me the idea for the Century Trilogy. It's by Eric Hobsbawm, English historian. He's actually born in Vienna. And his book is called The Age of Extremes, The Short 20th Century, 1914 to 1989. And that gave me the idea of writing a novel, in the end, a trilogy of 3 novels, that would tell the story of European civilization from 1914 to 1989, which is the trilogy I'm writing now.